Hello, everyone. The math coach here once again, addressing one of the questions you have brought to my attention. I want to just give you a contrast in this video on how the calculator can be unreliable at times. And so I want to emphasize the importance of actually knowing how to do the factoring by inspection or maybe long division, so that you get all the marks that you need, and not only that, so that your workings are also accurate. So what do we usually do when we use the table mode or the calculator? When we type the function on the calculator, right? So I'm gonna bring the calculator here, and there it is. And so what I'll do, as usual, this is what you guys do as well. We will go x cubed. There we go, x to the 3, and we will go negative 2x squared. Sorry, should have 2x, so I should go alpha that, and then squared minus 7, and then I should go x, and finally minus 4. So obviously then in this case, I'm not gonna do the -1, -2, and all that. The calculator will do the job for me, and I'm gonna work with my constant term. So I will do -4, and I will go up to 4, and then in steps of 1. So then I will scan through this, and it does appear that x equals to -1 is a root. And then let us see what is next here. Scrolling down and scrolling down, x equals to 4 is also a root. And it seems like that's about it in this case. So, of course, then there are two possibilities here. Either we have a graph, since x, the coefficient of x cubed is positive, either we have a graph then that has a turning point and an intercept at -1, or it has a turning point and an intercept at 4. So we need to know actually which of these values is a turning point and an intercept, right? The other thing, the other possibility could be we actually have a graph genuinely with 3 roots, okay? That is, -1 is one intercept and 4 is another intercept. But then the intercept here is a fraction, or it's an, it's a fraction. I want to say irrational, but yeah, it happens that it's a rational number. Now, that is why the calculator is unable to give you that, because you said it must go in steps of 1. So when it goes in steps of 1, it omits fractions. And the thing with the fractions is it's unpredictable. You cannot really predict whether the fraction is going to be a half or it's going to be a third. There are just many possibilities. So you can't even predict the correct step. So it becomes important, very crucial, that you actually know how to do this. I'm going to illustrate that with another function. So I've got 2 functions for you here. Now, let us see, in this case, what really is going on. Are we dealing with a graph or a function with 3 intercepts, or genuinely it's 2 intercepts? Now, these 2 bullets will clarify that for you. If you look at the first question, we actually had a hint. We were given a hint that f of 4 is a is equal to 0, which means actually x minus 4 is a factor of that function. So that means we can actually write f of x as x minus 4 times some trinomial here, which we could also factorize further, because that other root -1 gave us an idea that we could actually try and factorize it. So now it's inspection. It's through inspection that we will be able to do the factoring, all right? And we will find that hidden thing. But let me show you quickly how stationary points, or how calculating the stationary points can help you determine this without having to go for inspection. So I'm going to find the first derivative. And in this case, it is 3x squared minus 4x minus 7. And I'll try factorize this. Of course, because I really try and be very basic in these videos, I'm gonna assume that you know what, factoring is still a problem. You know, we do get those cases. So I'm gonna assume that, and so I'll say to you, well, run to your quadratic formula. And so let's go minus, what is the b here? It's a negative 4 plus minus the square root of b squared. Minus 4, a is a 3, and c is a minus 7. Please make sure that you do write this in your answer booklet. Show that you have used the quadratic formula if you were not able to factorize this expression or this function here, the equation. So we'll do that. So I will assume a very basic type of case here. Let's say we have not mastered factorization. So I'm going to punch all this in my calculator. All right, I will not use the on-screen calculator. I've just got one here with me, and I get a few things. Okay, first I get that x is 7/3. That's my first root. And then I have to hunt the second root. And I get the second root as what? Negative 1. Oh, hang on a second. Negative 1 is surely one of our roots here, isn't it? There we go. Remember, negative 1 produced a 0. Then it becomes clear that, well, this is a case of a stationary point, which is also an intercept. So I'll have x minus 1 all squared there. So that's what it implies by checking the stationary points. So then that means if you factor out this thing, now remember they said show all workings. This is how you're gonna do it. Okay, you're gonna go, okay, since x, well, since, so I'm gonna show you now how you are gonna answer this for your full 4 marks. Since f of 4 equals to 0, then x minus 4 is a factor. And if x minus 4 is a factor, then that means we can factorize that expression, x minus 4 and something. Now, what is that something that we saw? We saw that. Now, what is this x minus 1 all squared? It is actually x squared minus 2x plus 1. So that means you're just gonna do this here, 2x plus 1. And then what is this now? Sorry, I cannot write downwards because of my screen. It's limited, so I will do that. And so therefore, what are your intercepts? They wanted intercepts x equals to 4 or x equals to 1. So this here will be your rough work, That's what you do on your question paper. But what you write in your answer booklet is this. You want those full marks, we'll do that, and I will do that, we'll do that, and perhaps we'll give you a mark for both intercepts. All right, so that's what I would suggest. Do it this way, knowing that you've done that rough work using the calculator. Now, here is the contrast, and make sure, please, you watch this. Don't stop the video here and say you've got this. No, it's important that you watch this part and you know how these things can take a turn. If you look at this one, I'm still going to go through my calculator and take note here. I'm given a nice clue that f of 3 is also 0. So that means x minus 3 is a factor, right? Now I'm going to work with factors of 3. So let's bring back our calculator. There's our calculator, and I will go straight to table mode. And then I will type in my negative 2x cubed, and then plus 5x squared plus 4x, and then minus 3. And then where we're going to start, we're going to start at negative 3 up to 3, okay? Let me just point out that if your constant term was a number bigger than 3, maybe let's say it was minus 16, don't Don't do minus 16 to 16 because then you're gonna cause a whole lot of work for a calculator. It may not have the memory to compute that. So just take it in bits and pieces. I'd suggest go from -4 to 4. And if you don't find a solution there, then take the next step as from what? Maybe -8 to 8. Not even -8 to 8 actually. You want to zoom in, right? So just trying to include factors that you have not included before, all right? So try it that way so that you don't overwhelm the calculator, all right? So we've got that. And now, obviously, we always work in steps of 1, and we will go. Now I know that there is an x equals to -1. So which means x plus 1 is also one of the factors. And then I'll keep on going, keep on going, keep on going. There's the 3. And obviously there's nothing else. So I have 2 solutions here. But again, this is still a situation that is unclear. I don't know whether actually there's a double root or not here. So to verify this, I will then try find stationary points. It's a question that is there in any case. So I'm going to find the first derivative. In this case, it is -6x squared plus 10x plus 4, okay? Just bear in mind that we had an x plus 1 here. Maybe let's do that. That's what we have so far. So we want to find out if there's actually a third factor, or we just need to put a square there, or we need to put a square there. So we have 3 cases here. We don't know whether the double root is the 3, or is that, or we actually have another one. So finding stationary points will help us to clarify this issue. So I will then set this equals to 0, and I'll divide actually by -2 right away. And then I'll have 3x squared minus 5x minus 2. Once again, I will run to my quadratic formula. Please remember to indicate the substitution into the quadratic formula, and do tell us what you're solving for. In this case, you're solving for x, and perhaps I should do this in your side. So I go back to computer mode, and then I'll go minus the b here is a 10, and then I will, in fact, my calculator is quite smart. I have equation mode. So I'll just do this and it will do this for me. A is a 3, B is a -5, and C is a -2. So I now know that, well, 2 is 1 root, or what else? You can use, you'd be using the quadratic formula, or -1/3. Now, none of these values have appeared there. What does this mean? It says to me there is actually a third factor. So I need to find that factor. I need to find the factor. And this is where we cannot run away from the fact that we need to know how to do long division, or we need to at least know how to do inspection. So I will do inspection, and in case you missed it in the other video, here's another opportunity to catch it. All right. So we know at this stage that x minus 3 is a factor. So I know that, right? And then the next thing then that I will do, I just want to clear my board here so that we've got some nice working. Okay, so let's do it again, nice and fresh. I know that x minus 3 is a factor, so I will write x minus 3. Then I need to figure out what's going to happen here. All right. So what I will do is I will then start inspecting and go like, okay, I need to multiply x by something to get -2x cubed. And in this case, it is -2x squared, right? That is my first term. And I'll work with the last term. I need to multiply -3 by something to get a -3. In this case, it is quite obvious. I need to multiply that by a +1. So that's a +1 that I'll put there. Now, I need to find the middle term, which is obviously an x term. So the key thing here is the coefficient. To find that, I will quickly FOIL, multiply that. I get a negative 2x cubed as anticipated, so that term is sorted. And then I will multiply this x by that x. I don't know the sign at the moment, right? Sorry, actually, you don't do that. You multiply by that. Sorry, my apologies. You then get x. And then what you do is you multiply now the negative 3 by that, and you get a positive, take note, a positive 6x squared. And you do that, we get minus 3 as expected. The first and the last terms are sorted. Now, here comes the critical part. I need a 4x and a 5x squared. You can work out one of them and then you find. So, as a simple example, currently I get an x and I need a 4x. So that means I have to add a 3x to this thing. Okay. And another way, maybe if you used the x squared term, it would mean you need a minus x squared to actually get positive 5x squared. Now, you gotta decide on the sign that should actually be in front of this x term and the coefficient as well. If I'm gonna get an x squared term, for that matter, a negative x squared term, it means I actually need to multiply this x by that x. I hope you see that. And if that is the case, then that means the sign here should be negative. That's enough. That gives me a negative x squared. Now, you can then do a double check. I call this fireproofing, just to be confident about your working. You will then check if you multiply this negative 3 by this negative x, what do you get? Take note, you actually get a positive 3x, which is also one of the things you anticipated. Just like that, you have now completed your factoring at the stage where for just the steps. So I will get rid of this thing. And what do I have? I have x minus 3 into that. Now, it is always nice to get rid of the negative sign when dealing with quadratics. So I'm going to factor out this negative sign and take note, I am factoring it from this part of the equation. So there's no need to factor it twice. So I factor out the negative 1. I am left with 2x and I am left with plus x and I'm left with minus 1. Now, this makes life a little bit easier for me because now I can factorize this in here. Okay, you could still go ahead with the quadratic formula, but then this is quite simple, I believe. So it's 2x. You would want to multiply it by x. Maybe I should use a different color here so that you see exactly what I'm doing here. Let me just use blue once again. I took out that negative from this thing, so I'm left with positive 2x squared, but then I must have a plus here so that when I multiply back, I have that minus in green, and I have that. So I need to see this. So then, with that being done, factors of 2x squared is just 2x and x, and factors of a negative 1 is just 1 and 1, or factors of 1 rather. So because it's negative, I will have the negative 1 here and the plus 1 here. Now it becomes clear why we had a negative 1 here and why we had a positive 3 there. And why we couldn't get that other factor, it's because it is actually a half. Now, here are your 3 intercepts. Please take note, the question required coordinates. Therefore, you have to write your final, present your final answer in coordinate form and say, well, there is the coordinate 3 and 0, half and 0, and lastly, negative 1 and 0. It is very important that you pay instructions. You pay attention to the instructions that are given. So this is how you will go about it. I suggest you go about it. But obviously, for those of you who actually have the luxury of owning a calculator like mine, just want to show you how much of a cheat this calculator is. You could actually go to equation mode and use select option 5, which is equation. Now you are dealing with a cubic thing here, so you go for option 4. So as you can see, A is a -2, B is a 5, C is a 4, and the constant term is a -3. Guess what? This calculator can actually even give you all answers, even though they are fractions. Look at that. Look at that. We get all the answers as we anticipated. So in this case, you would maybe get away with this here. Let me just show you how you need to work it backwards. You may get away with this here, but then the examiner or the person marking your script will be like, okay, but then how did you get these answers? And this is where the rest of the marks are coming from. Now, let me show you how you can work backwards here. So your calculator will give you x equals to what? 3. It will also say to you x2 is a half. And it will say to you x3 is a -1. That's what we got, right? Now, this is how you're going to box it. Don't make it too obvious to the examiner. This here means that you have x -3 as a factor. Now, this here, obviously, to get a fraction, you divide it by 2. So you must think and say, oh, you had 2x equals to 1. So you had 2x -1 as a factor. And here you had x plus 1 as a factor. So these are all your factors. Now, since you were given that, so you will then rewrite this thing backwards. So you will have to start by saying, okay, I had x -3. Now, you're going to multiply this to FOIL them. So you're going to FOIL them, and what you get 2x squared. Obviously, then you get a plus x and a -1. But now don't make it too obvious again. You're going to get caught if you don't include that minus. So you're going to have that there. So, and then from here, then you're going to pretend, act like you know how to factorize, and you will rewrite it like that. And then from here, you then put up these values there, these 3 values here, and then you'd have 1. So what am I saying? You will have to start here first, then there, and then finally there. And obviously your coordinate form at the end if you wanted full marks having used a calculator. All right, I hope you take note of the warning, and you will actually try and get into that habit of showing all steps, though the calculator does give some assistance. Just use the calculator for confidence to be certain, but don't rely so much on it. Okay, looking forward to more of your questions. Don't forget to hit that notification icon and subscribe so that when another video comes in, you get a notification and you can catch up. Thank you for tuning in.